So last weekend, now rising superstar Joshua Van won what I would call a close fight against Brandon Royval to earn himself a guaranteed title shot against Alexandre Pantoja, the current flyweight king. And, you know, this fight is obviously going to happen, and I've got my thoughts. First and foremost, I like Joshua Van. I had him beating Brandon Royval. Although I was a bit upset with the judges' scorecards for the fight between Van and Royval, because one of them had it 30-27 Van when Royval was neck and neck with him. But I digress from that. What I'm trying to say is I like Joshua Van. I don't dislike the guy. He is a rising star, a hell of a fighter, especially at such a young age. He's the man, bro. Van is the man. That's the main idea when it comes to the fighter that Joshua Van is. That being said, Pantoja is on another level. I want you to bear with me here. I know a lot of you guys who like Van and support Van may immediately say, what the hell is this guy talking about? But Pantoja quite simply is on another level. I mean, look at the way Pantoja fought Kai Kara. Kai Kara France is a powerful brawler and a fighter. Look what he did to Steve Erceg. Sent Steve Erceg flying back 4 feet off a clean punch. Pantoja did that to him. Pantoja did nearly this, basically the same thing to Kai Asakura, a champion from Ryzen, a different fight organization. You know, Pantoja's been doing this to powerful, strikers. And I would say that Joshua Van is a powerful striker. Now, Van, I would argue, is tougher than the previous two guys that I mentioned, Kai Kara and Kai Asakura, because Van is a 5-round brawler. This guy gets bloodied up and will continue to march at you and throw the most powerful punches. But I would argue Pantoja does the same thing, and he's just as tough, if not a little tougher. But what separates Joshua Van and Alexandre Pantoja, and why I would say that Pantoja's on another level, and when the two of these guys fight, because the fight is going to happen, when the two of these guys fight, Pantoja's going to destroy Van. The reason why is the disparity in grappling. It's the disparity of skill in what happens when the two of these guys get close enough to throw one another to the ground and the fight goes to the ground. If it does, I feel it's my opinion that Pantoja is going to ragdoll Joshua Van. He's going to get Van in bad positions. I don't really think he'll submit Van. I think Van's got a lot of fight, a lot of heart, so much so that I think he's going to be able to fight off even the gnarliest of horrible positions on the ground, where he's very close to getting submitted. I think Van will fight them off. But I think Pantoja is going to ragdoll Van to the point where he wins via decision based off of pretty much sheer ground control time alone. I do think Van will have moments to where he's very close to beating Pantoja, like finishing the fight against Pantoja. And by that I mean there will be moments in the fight where Van lands incredibly clean punches to where we'll hear the point of connection. We'll hear the crack of Joshua Van's fist against the chin or body of Pantoja. But the what happens after that will shock you. What happens after that is that Pantoja is going to eat those shots with relative ease. I'm not saying Pantoja. Look, it's difficult for me to relay what I'm really thinking about this. Pantoja is so durable, that when Joshua Van lands those clean punches, those incredibly clean shots, where we hear the crack of them, even across the screen we hear the crack. Pantoja's he's going to move forward like nothing happened to him. He'll be bloodied. His shoulders might be a bit slumped, but he'll move forward and throw back. He'll throw back and then do whatever he can to get Van to the ground. And then once Van is to the ground, we're in Pantoja's world, where Pantoja's going to do whatever he can to keep Van there with him on top of him. And Pantoja will collect minute of ground control time after minute of ground control time until we get to the final round where Joshua Van knows he has to put his foot on the gas and gun for this finish so he can be the new, young, and bright flyweight champ. So Van will press forward. Pantoja, I don't even think Pantoja will be on the back foot. I think he'll meet Van in the center. And the both of them will swing once again, and every person watching will be on the edge of their seat, as will I be. I'll be screaming the play-by-play at you guys during my live stream. But what we will witness is that Van will throw those shots. Van will land those shots as he puts his foot on the gas, and Pantoja will eat them. He will throw back and land on Van, and the fight might just end with Pantoja on top of Van. We might see Pantoja eat a couple shots from Van as Van moves forward. Pantoja throws a shot back and then immediately goes for a double, single, whatever type of takedown he wants to attempt. And he may just get it because of how tired Van is as well. Van is a 5-round fighter. Van's not going to be completely gassed. But I think in that last round, Van will be tired enough to not be able to defend every takedown attempt in that final round. So I see Pantoja on top of Joshua Van to end the fight, and I see Pantoja on top of Joshua Van multiple times throughout the fight, to where Pantoja will have enough ground control time, regardless of how many clean punches Van lands, because Pantoja will land some clean punches as well. But the difference maker, as I'm saying, the difference maker is going to be what happens on the ground. And when it's time for the judges' scorecards to come out, I see it 29-28, 29-28, 29-28, because of the disparity in ground control time that favors Alexandre Pantoja. And I think it's primarily going to be the skill of ground game. Pantoja is incredibly dominant there. And he's shown that to us time and time again. His ability to eat punches with arguably one of the best chins in the UFC all time and move forward. Eat punches, move forward, throw back enough to get your opponent thrown off and indecisive about when that next takedown attempt is coming, and then immediately go for that takedown attempt. Drag him to the ground, lay on top of him, look for submissions, but primarily maintain control for the rest of the round, and then do that round after round after round until it is time for you to collect your championship belt yet again and get further and further to the legacy level of Demetrius Johnson. So yes, I like Joshua Van. I wouldn't be mad if he beat Pantoja. I would be a little bit because I am more of a Pantoja fan, but I like him so much, and I'd be interested to see how far his ceiling can actually reach, how far it goes up, you know? But again, I just think Pantoja is far too dominant, and I just gave you guys the play-by-play of what I think is going to actually happen when the two of these guys fight. Maybe late 2025, maybe late 2025, maybe early 2026. I don't know when they're going to get this fight together, but it's likely going to be sooner than later, you know, because Van is so young and hungry, and Pantoja is open to whatever challenge that he's able to you know, interact with, because Pantoja has been destroying fighter after fighter after fighter. You know, we just witnessed the UFC having to reach out to a different fight organization to get somebody that is, you know, good enough to give Pantoja, you know, a fair fight. And it didn't even happen. We got Kai Asakura from Ryzen, threw him in there with Pantoja. Pantoja, quick work. Made quick work of Asakura. Because the Cannibal, that's his fight name, the Cannibal, he's eating through people. He's eating through people time after time. So I don't see an end to Pantoja's reign. I stand by what I said previously, which is that I feel like Kai Kara-France was Pantoja's final test that separated Pantoja from the all-time greats. And I think Pantoja is now knocking on the door of the top few all time. But that's just me. Let me know what you think. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and turn the notifications on I love each and every one of you guys. And again, most importantly, turn the notifications on so you're notified about my next video dropping, because sometimes my YouTube likes to mess with my viewership. So again, stay tuned and make sure you turn those notifications on. I am Mr. Fight Companion from Glove Knowledge. I'll see you all in the next video.